Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative take about the world around me. So, on Speaker, there's a new thing that I enacted for listener support. And you enjoy my content, it would be greatly appreciated. I will include that link in this episode. So, I'm in a transition here. So, as far as excuse me about that. As far as cleaning the house and getting everything situated as far as the different platforms that I'm on, so I'm in transition. And currently, into everything, I update everything as far as the available links. And currently on Speaker, you can see all of my current content. And then as far as Pandora and all of that, I'm working on the process of updating that too, and figuring all that out to get that out there. But come on along and hear me on Speaker, on Spotify, and in everything else that I'm working to grow to continue to grow out and branch out on. And also on YouTube. And I will provide all of that content for you, the YouTube link too, for you in this episode. So this episode is the last installment for me talking about urban legends to end the month of July. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a two-pronged process about talking about urban legends that center around in the U.S., which is the origin in the U.S., and how that links out to the different urban legends in the states, urban legends, and that how that lore changes the aspect and the culture of the particular states that is coming from, as far as the interpretation about the different urban legends. And then I'm going to move globally and to the aspects of urban legends from an international perspective and how urban legends are seen from those point of views. All right, so let's dive in. Okay, so from my point of view, as far as urban legends, particularly my first introduction to the aspect of that, understanding it more and more, getting older, was through a book. Growing up, that you're a kid of a certain growing up as a child of a certain era of a certain age, from the 90s on to when I was introduced to this in the early 2000s, particularly in 2000, the book of scary stories. So, seeing the illustrations and then reading the stories, the illustrations really do that extra layer of edge into the depths of creepiness and to those elements of really impacting, let me say that again, impacting the power of these stories. And you get the fear and the call to action where the written part cannot. And then, my curiosity as I got older is quite interesting to find that out of that center around the aspect of urban legends and how that is interesting when it takes a center around the aspect of introducing these elements to children. And I just think it's really fascinating when you break down all of these things and it comes out into the surface level of what culture is, what kind of culture is centered around the aspect of urban legends, and then how urban legends shape and define a particular part of the world, and more in this part of the section of my podcast, focusing in on this episode of the U.S. and particularly the states. And it's quite interesting to me where, with each state in the U.S. has their own particular symbol of what is recognizable to everyone, universally. And then, whether that be clothing, literature, food, things of that nature. These are things that are seen as a means of things that are easy to relate to for the most part. But when you get into the aspects of talking about the urban legend part of where that comes from, of what a state is recognizable with in the urban legend, that's a particularly unique thing because it taps on, to me, the aspect of fear, and out of those fears, what are they particularly saying around what is the mass center around these particular fears? Where do they come from? Do they come from a aspect of expectation, an aspect of status? What is that actually about? And so, in this particular episode, I want to dive in and talk about these urban legends and give my thoughts on it, and break that down about that connection of what is it really actually saying out of the supernatural elements, and linking it to the within the supernatural elements. A lot of times it centers around particular fears and what do those fears mean, and then so forth, and to the international perspective about urban legends. All right, so here we go. Let me start out with Alabama and the Hell's Gate Bridge. The generally accepted story of Hell's Gate Bridge starts in the 1950s, according to the Oxford Paranormal Society. A young couple driving over the bridge somehow drove their car off of the bridge one night, and they both drowned. There are two legends associated with Hell's Gate Bridge. One, if you drive your car out of the middle of the bridge and turn off the lights, the couple will magically appear in your car and leave a wet spot on the seat. The other, which is how the bridge got its name, is the belief that if you drive over the bridge and look over your shoulder halfway through, the scenery behind you turns into a portal to hell, which engulfs in flames, potentially to curb ghost hunters and bored teenagers. Hellgate's Bridge is closed to cars, according to the Anston Star, and is in such despair that walking across it is strongly discouraged. So it's really interesting with this saying. This particularly reminds me of that aspect of the scene that, you see with Beetlejuice. So this young couple, they're going through a bridge, and you never know, that could be the link of that. It could be an urban legend linking into that particular scene where they're going over a bridge, and then the dog is on the ledge of a wooden plank, and then they're begging the dog to stop, to not get on the get off, to not, not tip over the wooden plank, and he does, and then they fall to their demise. So in that aspect, to me, it interprets the elements of youth, and mixing that into the aspects of immortality, and the aspects of, in that immortality, where does death, as far as the concept of your purpose in life, where does that fall in? And so it's one of those, things that goes deep within the elements of questioning our aspect of that, not to take things particularly of interest of for granted, in the elements of the grandeur of youth, and then breaking that down with the grandeur of youth, of that ever presence of that ironical fate of everything is promised, and your youth, you have your whole life ahead of you, and then without warning, it's all taken away. And then the aspect of the undertones of that with the supernatural layer of Hell's Gate, and what is that actually saying, in the aspect of that, an element of how, particularly in the masses, of how everything is represented, as far as from a point of view with Satan, with witches, with witchcraft and stuff like that. Youth, particularly taking the souls of youth, is in the best interest of their own needs of, deceiving their own appearances so they can look young, and so they can keep alluring people to the aspects of the power of sin, and then the aspects and the elements of the nature of that, of allure, into the depths of deceptions of what hell actually means. No, it's not what you're saying. It's if you get into the element of, it's all about the presentation of looks of youth. It's not bad particularly, it's from the point of view of temptation, of that, of what I'm getting into, of